All right. Hey, welcome everyone to the Think Tank. Each day we share the news in open dialogue and discuss how it might affect the business world. We speak with different leaders on crisis management and navigation through that, as well as with experts in professional and personal self-betterment, like Coach Stephen today. It's meant to be a break and a learning and a sharing of good news and ideas to start people moving forward. It's called the Think Tank. We like to quickly kind of do a run around and introduce everyone so they know where we're coming from and who they are. So I'll do that. And if I mess it up, please jump in and correct. But there's Robbie Sawyer in the top corner. He is with Thinkers Society. He helps people get to their better ideas faster by creating unique experiences, enrichment, and engagement around that. There's Kimball Anderson, a creative production producer. So he puts on the big shows, the big meetings, and creates content around that to make everyone look brilliant and present beautifully. There's Coach. We'll learn about him in a minute. Alberto Elizondo, photographer extraordinaire with his big gun out right now. He is a sports photographer, celebrity photographer, will shoot anybody photographer, does a great job, and he's #1 guy. We're going to learn some things from him today probably too, since we're talking sports. Doug Carroll, who is a crisis and challenge manager, advisor to boards and corporations around the world during crazy times like right now. So he's very busy, but he brings to us some basic principles of how we should all move forward in a 10-step process, which we've been working through a couple of those steps along the way. So that's fun. Scott Anderson, videographer, producer extraordinaire. And Scott does a ton of stuff in sports and is a sportsman as well, and always brings an interesting perspective. There's Mike Tolman, photographer as well. Lots of photographers today. And Mike does all sorts of lifestyle and commercial shoots. And I think, do you dabble in sports as well, Mike? Mute. Unmute.
We backed up some folks in sports here in Houston, Toyota Center, occasionally for some events, some Houston Texans stuff occasionally, but not. It's really a backup role for those guys.
And lots of play calling with the Astros, right?
Not anymore. Oh. You know, baseball's going to have to earn it back from me. I gave them a shot. They blew it with the steroids. It's just hard. It's just, you know, I was a stats guy, and I like to compare them all, and it's not the same game anymore. And so, you know, I'll give them a shot later on, but I just hate that the Astros are now the face of, they're the Barry Bonds of the game now. Whole game, you know.
And our final
Black Sox.
Our final contestant on screen right now is Jeff O'Hare, hailing from New Orleans, and he is the owner of PRA. They're a destination management company, and for those that don't know what that means, if you're going to New Orleans and need to put on a unique experience and you want to own the town, Jeff makes that happen. He's done some of the craziest things ever. He had us on the field at the what's it called, Jeff? What's the dome called?
Mercedes.
Superdome.
Mercedes, yeah, the Superdome. Yeah. And so we were flying drones around in there, and Jeff threw a huge party, and it was great to be able to do some of that with him. We've got a couple people there online on YouTube. Thank you for joining. Please add your comments if you'd like. Just a quick couple notes. Tomorrow is happy hour, 4 o'clock. Join us with your favorite beverage while we campfire around what's happened this week and talk about what we've learned and what we're looking for the next week. Actually, next week, we're going to have John Show on. He's a sports publicist, so he helps sporting events and teams figure out how to position themselves to get better and more PR. So that'll be interesting. In particular, we're going to talk to him about the PGA and what they're doing and how that's going to work. So that's what's happening there. Now we typically will jump into any news items that anyone wants to share. Kimball's always good for a little talk on PPP, and you should have a lot of stuff on that, do you?
Well, the update on that, the payroll protection plan, as Doug can probably articulate, has started to happen and is happening. I'm not as focused on that as I am as that little disaster loan situation, and they have drastically drained that fund. The first few people got some of the money. They realized this $10,000 number is not going to work. And so it became $1,000 per employee. And then they said, oh, and by the way, we're out of money. So get back to us if we ever get any more money on that. So I'm not too hopeful for that one. But they did open up the Get My Payment link to look for your disaster stimulus check. And it
crashed immediately.
It has, but if you're getting error messages, it may have something to do with your status or eligibility for filing on that. So still waiting. I haven't seen any money in my cash box. So
yeah, we just heard from my in-laws who are both retired in Florida, and they did get their they actually did get their checks. So that was cool.
And I did hear today on the news, on the radio anyway, that the PPP side of things also ran out of money too. So they're trying to figure out how to do that. So need more money, everybody. Any other thoughts or news that we need to share?
Hey, look, let's welcome Logan down there. I see Logan.
There's Logan Sawyer,
Coach,
quarterback, football extraordinaire, has joined to keep Coach honest here in a minute when we start asking him some questions.
I'm going to put him under the fire now that he's here.
Oh,
yeah. All right, well, we'll just jump right into it because I don't think we have any new great news of any sort. So thank you for joining us, Coach Stephen Anthony. He is an educator, a mentor, a coach for over 21 years. Tell me when I'm wrong, but I think this is legit information I have here. He's got a master's in educational leadership, and he's an Aggie, so don't hold that against him.
I saw it, Kimball.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Coach. It's not mine. I found it.
Yeah, and Logan and the two of them have had quite the battles over the years anyway.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Coach is the offensive coordinator for the
Paladins.
Richardson High School Eagles, and he also runs another program there we're going to hear a little bit about. But thank you for joining us, Coach. We're really interested to hear both about sports and also what's happening in education during these times. So you've got an interesting position. You're almost a double agent in that, yes, you're football, but then you run this other interesting program called Peer Helpers. Can you tell us a little bit about what Peer Helpers is and how that's working or what that's all about?
Sure. I teach two classes that involve kind of a social aspect in school. One of them is called Peer Helpers, and the other one's Peer Mediators. And it's kind of under the umbrella of a program called PALS. And really, we do a lot of different things, but honestly, the biggest thing that we do is we serve our school and our community. As far as the helpers go, we have a focus on mentoring elementary kids, and Logan was actually a helper, and he can chime in if he'd like to, but that's where we're basically helping out kids that are struggling at the elementary level socially, not academically. We're not tutors. We are helping kids that are, either being bullied or possibly are bullies. Their home lives not really to standard. Just a lot of different things. Not necessarily learning disabilities, but just they're struggling in school socially. And that's really where our peer helpers focus. And then our peer mediators are more on campus, kind of, by title, helping out when we have disputes between students and sometimes between students and teachers. It can be a really interesting role that we have. We go through a stringent interview process where we literally take the best of the best at Richardson High School, and because they have a lot of responsibility. And I give them a lot of responsibility. So it's a really cool program.
So when someone's in a challenge or in a tough place that they can't navigate, they come check in with you guys and first kind of do a counseling of sorts. And
yeah, in a way, if we kind of, I call them my minions. We go out, for instance, I'll give them a couple of lunches. We have 3 lunches at RHS, and they'll go around and look for kids that are eating by themselves, seem to be struggling socially. And it doesn't take long to spot those type of kids. And so we develop relationships with those kids. There's been multiple times, sad to say, but there's been multiple times where we've kind of got inside knowledge of kids that wanted to cause harm to either themselves or others. There's no better source of information than other kids. And so by serving the community and serving the school district, we were able to kind of trump some of those, or have a preemptive strike, for better words, on limiting, I don't want to really say the school shootings and all that kind of stuff. I'll just say it, but
Yeah.
just trying to make sure that we're on the front lines.
Cool.
Hey,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Sam. Hey, Coach. So obviously, we'll get into the impact of what you guys have had to deal with the COVID-19 component, but specifically with peer helpers, how is that program? What have you had to do, or how much have you had to change that program, or is it just? Is it even more important now? And are those kids able to interface and have discussions with kids, even though they don't see them on a day-to-day basis?
Well, yeah, obviously there's a huge change in our role. Now, part of what the district wants us to do is to do a lot of self-reflection with those kids, because a lot of them are seniors and they're going through a really tough time right now with having things like prom and some of the end of the year things, like the shows that they put on. All of those things have been canceled. Obviously sports, with baseball and soccer and all of those things having to end early. So a lot of the things that we're doing right now is to help within PALs, within mediators and helpers, because there's a lot of kids that are struggling who are the ones that are actually supposed to be helping others that struggle. So part of that is the reflection part. And, we Zoom meet with them and have discussions and just check up and make sure that they're doing okay. As far as still serving, the helpers are actually still communicating with their elementary. We call them PALlies. So they're emailing their PALlies once a week and communicating that way. The district really limits, the type of communication you can have, especially when you're talking about high school kids with elementary kids. So the only vehicle we have right now is through email. We call them our pen pals. So we're emailing those kids and still trying to maintain that relationship. Where the biggest downfall of when it comes to my class is that we're not really able to serve the school very well anymore.
Hey, Coach, this is a pretty groundbreaking program. Is it something the district kind of created, or is it widespread across school districts in Texas, or is this unique?
There's 3 or 4. Allen has a PALS program. South Lake has a PALS program. There's a few of those. There's also other programs called Peacekeepers that other school districts have. So there are a lot of programs out there, but I think Richardson's pretty cutting edge on trying to, we have such a diverse community, and we still maintain really, high standards. And so when you do that, you've got to be pretty sharp on, trying to do stuff up front. So, I think our program's pretty, it's been successful so far.
All right, let's change hats or change helmets here a little bit. So tell us what we need to know about Eagles football. And I think Jeff knows this. He's our only out-of-towner right now that I can see, but football is a big deal in Texas and in North Texas. So hearing about high school football, we should hear some good stuff here. So what do we need to know about the Eagles?
Well, I'm going to try to keep from having a lot of coach speak, but we're this is the first time going into a football season, assuming we have it, where the offense is going to be really young and the defense is going to have a lot of experience. So I have to, as the offensive coordinator, I have to go in with a whole different mindset to be more conservative, to be okay with winning a football game 17-14. that situation, as opposed to, trying to score 30 to 50 points. Because if our strength's going to be the defense, then we want to make sure that we run a lot of time off the clock and let them do their thing, if that makes sense.
So you had a
Yeah.
lot of key players graduate or key positions graduate. So
We
you're
did.
training up. Okay.
We did. We lost 3 offensive linemen, quarterback, running back, and our 2 best receivers.
And what was that, number 19? Was that quarterback last year?
That was 2 years ago. I would take him back in a heartbeat.
Oh, 2 years. Oh, yeah, that's right. 2 years ago.
Hey, and for those of you that don't know, obviously we know Coach Anthony a little bit and know his style. Coach, you did for the longest time, do you still hold the record at Pierce for single game passing yards or touchdowns? Wasn't that with because this guy likes to throw the football all over the field most of the time, any chance he can. So you're definitely, it's going to be a challenge for you to alter your style as much as it sounds like you're going to have to.
Yeah, it is. We held it for about 10 years. We threw for 636 yards in one game, and one receiver had 330 of them. So that was, sometimes you can go half a season and only throw for 600 yards. So that was really nice.
So
Wow.
this is the beginning of getting the team back together and starting to get ready for kind of next year's program, isn't it?
Yeah, in
This
fact,
time of year?
this past Tuesday on the 14th, we were starting spring ball. I didn't take that reminder off my phone, so I woke up with the morning with a big thing that says spring ball starts today, and it totally made me depressed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how does that look, or what's going to happen there? I mean, we hear about the Cowboys and the NFL that, hey, they're starting back as well, but it's all going to be virtual. So do you guys have to all of a sudden come up with a whole program to do virtually, or does everyone just kind of get an extra couple weeks off?
Are you talking about right before the season or right now?
Like right now.
So right now, what we're doing is we're giving the kids workouts, and by position coach, they get checked in. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Google Classroom, but it's basically just a way, basically a bulletin board of a way we can communicate with the kids. And every day they go in and see their workout, and then they video it, or at least take a picture of what they're doing.
Okay.
And then they submit it. And then we go in every day, or actually the next day in the morning, because we give them till 12 the night before to get their workout done. And you'll be surprised, a lot of kids don't mind working out at 11 p.m. So anyway, so we check their workout. So 5 days a week, they have a workout that they have to check in with us. And then we meet as a staff on Mondays. Then on Tuesdays, we meet offensively and defensively. Wednesdays, we meet with our kids. So I meet with the quarterbacks every Wednesday from 9:45 to 10:45 on Zoom. And then on Thursdays, we have coordinator meetings. And then Friday, it's kind of just an optional time that if, like, I wanted to meet just with Logan, let's say, or with the quarterback, then just me and him one-on-one through Zoom, we'll do that. And during those meetings, that's where I'll use the screen share and pull up a PowerPoint, and we'll go through certain aspects of the way I would install it. For instance, on yesterday, I installed our day 3 progression and Logan would love hearing this, where we put in our shallows and crosses. And I had them draw it up and go through the progression with me and why they would throw it here versus here, that kind of stuff. So we're trying to keep them engaged mentally as well as emotionally.
It's interesting. I've seen this with my kid in her school. Before, it was never really a competition, or you couldn't see who was doing what. You're just all in the same classroom. But when you do it in this format, there's got to be some sort of competition going, like who's done their workout and who hasn't, and much more peer pressure, if you will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because they all see it. And
yeah,
when we do the position meetings, that's item number 1 is I bring it up and screen share it, and they see who's done their workouts and who hasn't. And there's no better pressure than peer pressure.
Yeah. Right. So How is it affecting your seniors? I mean, because this is, like you said, this is your time for your senior proms and getting ready for graduation, or has everyone already figured out like where they're going to college or where they hope to go to college, or is recruiting still happen now? What happens and what are we missing, and how are we solving that right now?
Well, from a recruiting aspect, luckily most of that has been done in February. So
Okay.
they're pretty lined out with where they're going to school. It's really, missing those big events like prom, or missing, our baseball team, possibly a chance to go to the playoffs. So missing that opportunity. Really where I've seen, and I think Robbie will understand this, where I've seen a lot of struggles is from parents. We've gotten a lot of messages from parents. What can we do special for these kids? And so like right now we're on Facebook, we're like doing a big, collage of their senior pictures with them playing, where they're going to school, things about them, trying to give them some kind of recognition that they're going to miss out on by not walking across the stage.
Right. Because we're pretty much, has it already been called then that we're in home confinement through graduation at this point? I think it has, hadn't it?
Well, right now. Richardson's stance is it's indefinitely, but
Okay.
I would be very shocked if we come back.
Okay. So back to the peer side, has this actually helped in connecting deeper and more significantly with those kind of being challenged, or those in different positions, or do you just see them going out into the phrase and you don't have that connection anymore?
Yeah, I would say from me learning about my students, because I'm reading a lot about their thoughts and feelings through their reflections assignment that I give them once a week. I'm learning more about them, but it's definitely been detrimental to our ability to serve the community, because you can't socialize, and that's what our organization really is.
Right. Are you seeing the kids do their own kind of Zooms and get-togethers or Google Hangouts, or are they doing anything socially besides waving at each other from a car away or something? I've seen a couple birthday parades go by and wave at someone, but that's got to hurt.
Yeah, that's literally all I've seen is the birthday parades, and an older student that's already graduated, she had a baby shower the other day. I saw where they just left all the gifts on the front porch. So there's some good things and bad things about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing we've had the conversation with Logan and Lucas, and I'm sure other people have had it with their kids. Man, when you obviously see kids through the and just know certain kids that have it rough at home. And as Coach Anthony alluded to earlier, for those that don't know, Richardson's a pretty diverse community for sure. But at least when you see them during school, you can pick up on certain things, and you can, hopefully be able to be that, that support mechanism that they need. But man, I just can't imagine what some of these kids are probably going through, because they're already in a tough environment, and at least school and athletics gives them that outlet to maybe get away from some of those things. So, it stinks. And I know you, and I know it must weigh on you heavily to not be able to impact some of those kids as much as you would normally be able to do it.
Absolutely. We still try to develop the culture that we have at RHS with doing character development. We have a big thing. Coach Pels is awesome, especially when it comes to building leadership and character with kids. So trying to maintain that, and also drawing up plays, and worried about workouts and all the things that you have to do to be successful on the field. We have to find that balance, and so that's still an ongoing process for sure.
Hey,
Logan, would you like to chime in on any of the life skills that we try to teach? Do you remember those?
I think I do, but geez.
You want me to give you a
Physical conditioning, discipline, relating to peers, relating to authority, and react to and handle emotion.
Geez, I guess you do remember.
Yeah, I just had it.
So that makes me so
Hey,
happy.
Coach Anthony, I think they're stuck to the wall right in front of him and in front of it on his desk or something. He rattled them off pretty quick.
Well, that's awesome. That makes me feel good after 2 years that still sticks with him, because that's what we're trying to do, is to build leaders. And those are the things that you have to do to be a great leader, for sure. I don't know if y'all caught that again. You want to say them one more time, Logan?
Physical conditioning, discipline, relating to peers, relating to authority, and react to and handle emotion.
And as a high school student, they have to go through that every day. And really all of us do. Maybe not necessarily the physical conditioning, but definitely relating to peers, relating to authority, and how to react and handle emotion, especially in days like today.
Yeah, Doug, that's what I was going to say. It's amazing. They're being coached up from a high school standpoint, but that's exactly the things that we have to deal with or should be dealing with.
It's interesting. I was sitting here listening, and you may have seen me shake my head a few times. You know, I've been a coach. I was an athlete, and a lot of what I do, I take from that world. But if I were to sit here, I would say what Coach just delivered, I wish we could give a master class to the management and executives of businesses. And, you know, when you listen to what they're teaching in the basics and the communication effort they're making with all of the you know, the players today, if our business leaders were doing the same thing at that level with their employees, we wouldn't have the problems and the fear that we have now. So I'm in total support and awe of the program and the process, and wish everybody could follow it. So that didn't even sound angry, did it, Sam?
Oh, that was pretty good, Doug. That was really good. That was good. So we don't have to turn your mic on again for the rest. That one was.
Oh,
No,
so I can go back to
I mean,
taking a nap. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's interesting for those that don't follow high school football, especially in Texas. And yes, it's about having these great teams and 10,000 yards and all of that stuff. But it's really the place for a lot of these kids that they get structure, that they learn about confidence, that hopefully, if the program is first and foremost, they start getting and turning people into, young men, or in other sports, young women that are ready to go interact with society in a positive way. So that's great to hear that. And obviously it's a challenge during these times when you can't physically be there, because that's such an important element is that touch.
And to promote football just for a minute, because, it gets a bad rep with all of this concussion stuff, but it's a no-cut sport. We welcome every kid that wants to be involved. And hopefully when they leave our program, they're better men, they're better husbands. They've built a lot of leadership skills that they need to be successful. And I wish that message could get out more, because it's not just about wins and losses, and for instance, a really prominent head coach just had to step down from a position here in the DFW area, because he was winning a lot of games, but he wasn't necessarily building leaders, at least not by example. And so, it's definitely a balance, because we are in Texas, but there's a lot more to it than just wins and losses. I promise.
Coach, that kind of brings up a question I had about your career path. I'm curious, because you've got the education and the focus on a lot more than athletics, but obviously I'm sure athletics was a key to your early years. What track were you primarily interested in, and how did you end up being so versed in both sides of both the athletic and the academic side?
Well, when I went first of all, just a little bit about me. I'm from a family of 6. All of us are either teachers, coaches, or principals. So education's in my blood. I went to A&M I was going to be the black sheep. I was going to be a dentist. And I went through 4 years of the A&M pre-med program, because you do pre-med to go into dentistry. Took the test and did all that. But I worked for a dentist, and I realized when I worked for him for a couple of summers in an internship that it just wasn't for me. And so my mom was really upset. And nothing wrong with dentistry, by the way. sorry, just throwing that out, but it just wasn't for me. And so when I told my mom, she was so upset because she wanted me to get out of education, but my dad just basically said, welcome back to the family. So just education, being around kids is just in my blood. And so, you know, from a teaching standpoint, I really, for most of my 20 years, I taught physics. The PALS program has just been since I've been at Richardson for the last 3. So I taught physics for almost 19 years. And so, you know, I think academics are extremely important. And then with all the social things that kids have to deal with nowadays, it's, you know, the PALS program has really shown me a new side. You know, when I was at Pierce, I actually was a sponsor for a country Western dance team. So I've kind of got all kinds of different aspects, but just being around kids and trying to make them better is really what I strive to do. You know, from a career standpoint, I think someone asked that path. I do have aspirations to be a head coach in a certain situation, but to be honest with you right now, I've never been happier in my job. And that's really what's the most important part.
But the X's and O's side of being an offensive coordinator, I mean, so were you an athlete, or what track did you follow to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play college football, but I, you know, like it being in my blood, I had some success in high school, and I was lucky enough to work for a couple of really good men that really inspired me to be a great coach, or at least try to be a great coach. Through that, you pick up a lot of different things. There was a big trend a few years ago. I say a few years ago. This was in 2008, which is why I asked about when your son was at Lake Highlands. When the Mike Leach system, Hal Mumme, Tony Franklin, all these quote unquote geniuses in offense, they started putting on these clinics, and I really bought into a lot of that stuff. So that's where my background is from a coordinator standpoint. You know, if you were to go to Mississippi State, did he go to Mississippi State or did he go to Ole Miss? He went to Mississippi State, right? Mike Leach?
Leach?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right
Scott
now?
Mumme.
Yes.
Yeah, he went to state. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to go to Mississippi State right now, and I have our kids show up and Mike Leach yells, you know, getting early, our kids would know exactly what to do to get into and to run wide shallow. It's the same. Yeah. It's a lot of the same verbiage and a lot of those same things. But over the years, you don't, in high school, since you can't recruit, or at least we can't, some people do, you can't really recruit. So you got to play with who you have. So I've had to make a lot of adjustments over the years. Pierce in 2012, 2011, we threw for 3,000 yards. In 2012, we ran for almost 3,000 yards. So in the season, so you just got to make adjustments. And this year is definitely going to be a big adjustment with where we're at offensively.
Very good. Any other questions from the peanut gallery here?
Sounds like given those offensive adjustments, Coach, the under is going to be a good play for the first few games till the market catches on, huh?
Yeah. I got what you're saying.
That's a good point, Jeff. Yep.
I imagine you could bet on high school football in Texas.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a. What you don't have to, obviously you're not going to mention names. How young are the guys coming in at quarterback, Coach?
Well, we do have some experience coming back. With last year, I don't know if you caught any games, but we did a lot of Wildcat, and with that Wildcat quarterback, now he's going to probably play a lot more quarterback. But we did get a move in that's got a really good arm. He reminds me of your son, to be honest with you. So we do have that, but without going through spring ball, it's really hard for me to say exactly what we have right now. But then you're replacing some really good offensive linemen. You're replacing some really good receivers and a running back that had a ton of experience. So there's always question marks when you have to do that, when you haven't actually seen them play on Friday night. The talent's there, but talents is, only a part of the game.
Coach, without the spring practices, what does that do to your planning for the upcoming season as far as talent evaluation once everybody's able to get back together? Does that take some time away from your game prep? Because you have to understand who you've got in the talent position.
Yeah, we actually, luckily, we started skills a lot earlier. Usually we start skills at the end of January, but this year we started it in the 1st of December because we knew we had to really accelerate where we needed to be for next year. So we're actually kind of ahead of the game. Obviously, we didn't anticipate this, but I'm sure glad that we did it. You know, our first game, which I did want to touch on, we're playing Prosper Rock Hill, which they're a brand new school. And because of that and the hiring processes that everyone's having to go through, those kids haven't even met a lot of their coaches at all, not in person. And so to answer your question going into the fall, yeah, we'll spend some time with personnel evaluation, but really a lot of our time is going to be spent on covering the basics and just try to come out with our base offense and really try to, execute versus a team that is going to be a little bit behind, just not because of anybody's fault, but because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it stinks too because of the new Richardson got its new indoor facility that opened back in August or September, and this would have been. I mean, obviously, you were able to practice in January because of that facility, correct?
Yeah, and that's all on the community. They're really supporting us, and that's huge. If you want to have success in your programs, that's the number one thing: your community support.
Very good. Any last questions? All right. Well, Coach, thanks for joining us today. It's always interesting to hear a different perspective and see how people are managing these crazy times. And as we say, are starting to move forward. We'll be all tuning in on Friday nights to watch you take a run.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Remember, 4:00 tomorrow is happy hour on the Think Tank, and we'll have some fun stuff next week. Wash your hands, stay healthy, and stay home.
Good seeing you.
See you later.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Coach.